humble single mother takes her daughter to work and is shocked by the millionaire CEO's unexpected gesture. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from. It's always amazing to see. Now, onto the story. The December dawn broke, reluctantly over New York City, painting the sky in watercolor hues of pink and gold. In a cramped one-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn, Emily Harris was already awake, moving quietly so as not to disturb 6-month-old Lily, who had finally fallen asleep after a restless night of teething pain. Emily's slender fingers, cracked from cleaning chemicals, gently brushed a wisp of blonde hair from her daughter's flushed cheek. At 28, exhaustion had etched fine lines around her eyes that belied her youth. Her teaching degree, earned with such hope and sacrifice, now gathered dust while she cleaned offices to keep a roof over their heads. "Just you and me against the world, little one," she whispered, her voice catching. The envelope on the kitchen counter, another late notice, would have to wait. Today was her first day cleaning the executive floor at Whitfield Tower, and she couldn't afford to be late. Across the East River, in a penthouse that occupied the entire top floor of that same tower, Blake Whitfield stood at floor-to-ceiling, windows watching the same sunrise with unseeing eyes. His reflection stared back at him, impeccably dressed in a tailored charcoal suit, not a dark hair out of place. His handsome features set in the mask of cool competence that had become second nature. At 35, Blake had everything money could buy and nothing that truly mattered. The empire he'd inherited when his parents died in that terrible crash 3 years ago had doubled in value under his leadership. Yet each triumph felt hollow, each day a performance for an audience he didn't care about. His phone vibrated with his assistant's message. "Board meeting moved to 9 a.m. Your aunt insists on attending." Blake's jaw tightened. Audrey had been circling like a vulture since his parents' funeral, questioning his decisions, undermining his authority. The company was his responsibility now, his burden to bear. The two worlds, Emily's struggle and Blake's isolation, existed mere floors apart in the same building, separate universes that were never meant to intersect. Until today. By 7:30 a.m., Emily had dropped off her meager lunch in the staff break room and begun her rounds, pushing her cleaning cart into the hushed sanctuary of executive offices. The gleaming marble floors and original artwork made her feel like an intruder in a museum after hours. When her phone vibrated, her heart sank. The daycare was calling. Lily's fever had returned. They needed her to pick up her daughter immediately. Emily bit her lip until she tasted blood. First day on the executive floor and she'd have to leave early. She'd lose this job, and then the apartment would surely follow. Meanwhile, Blake stalked down the hallway toward his office, already battling a migraine from his aunt's not-so-subtle power plays in the morning meeting. He rounded the corner just as Emily backed out of an office, cart in tow. Their collision was inevitable, his distraction, her worry, both trapped in their private storms. Cleaning supplies clattered to the floor as Emily stumbled backward, mortified, to find herself staring into the steel-blue eyes of Blake Whitfield himself, the CEO whose face graced the business magazines in the break room, whose name was whispered with equal parts fear and admiration by the other cleaners. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Whitfield," Emily managed, dropping to her knees to gather scattered bottles and rags. Something in her voice, the genuine distress perhaps, or the dignity despite her obvious embarrassment, made Blake actually look at her, really see her. The intelligence in her green eyes, the worry etched on her face, the simple grace with which she carried herself even in this humiliating moment. His assistant appeared at his elbow, clipboard in hand, ready to smooth over the interruption. But for reasons Blake couldn't explain, he found himself waving her away and kneeling down to help the cleaner collect her supplies. "No harm done," he said quietly, handing her a bottle of glass cleaner. "Are you all right?" Their fingers brushed and something electric passed between them. A recognition neither understood, a connection neither sought. Neither could possibly know that this brief encounter would change both their lives forever. Blake couldn't stop thinking about the cleaner with the worried eyes. Something about her haunted him as he tried to focus on quarterly projections. His concentration was shattered by shouting from the hallway, "Miss Harris, this is completely unacceptable." The sharp voice of Diane Porter, head of facilities management, carried through the glass walls. "You know children aren't allowed on premises." Blake moved to his doorway, surprised to see the same green-eyed woman from earlier, now cradling a bundle against her chest. "I understand, Mrs. Porter, but the daycare called. My daughter's fever spiked to 102, Emily explained, her voice steady despite her evident distress. "I was coming to tell you I need to leave early. This is your first day on executive level. Do you know how many people want your position?" Porter's volume increased. "If you leave now, is there a problem?" Blake's quiet question silenced the hallway instantly. Porter straightened. "Mr. Whitfield, I apologize for the disturbance. Emily Harris here brought her baby to work against clear company policy. I was explaining that—" A soft whimper emanated from the bundle, and Emily gently bounced to soothe the infant. The movement shifted the blanket, revealing a flushed little face with fever-bright eyes. Something twisted in Blake's chest. "Is she ill?" "Yes, sir. The daycare called. I'm sorry for the disruption. I was just leaving." Emily's dignity in the face of potential job loss impressed him. "Mrs. Porter, prepare a car for Miss Harris and her daughter," Blake said suddenly, "and have Dr. Miller meet them at my penthouse." The facilities manager's mouth fell open. "Your penthouse, sir? It's closer than Brooklyn, and my personal physician can be there in 10 minutes. He turned to Emily, whose shock matched Porter's. "Unless you'd prefer a hospital?" "No, but Mr. Whitfield, this isn't necessary. We'll be fine. I insist." The words surprised even him. The company car service is faster than public transport, and Dr. Miller specializes in pediatrics. 15 minutes later, Blake's driver called to confirm they'd arrived safely. Blake tried to return to work but found himself checking his phone repeatedly. When a text from Dr. Miller arrived, "Just a teething fever, nothing serious. Gave her children's acetaminophen." He felt an inexplicable relief. Hours later, when Blake entered his rarely used living room, he found Emily singing softly to Lily, who was sleeping peacefully on his imported Italian sofa. "I'm so sorry about this," Emily whispered, mortification coloring her cheeks. "We'll leave immediately." "There's no rush," Blake responded, loosening his tie. He surprised himself by asking, "May I?" Hesitantly, Emily shifted so he could see the sleeping baby's face. When Lily's eyes fluttered open momentarily, she stared at Blake with foggy curiosity before offering a gummy, innocent smile. Something cracked inside him, a hairline fracture in the ice that had encased his heart since the accident. The baby's guileless trust pierced through his carefully constructed defenses. "She's beautiful," he said softly. "Like her mother." The words hung between them, unplanned and dangerous, changing everything. 2 weeks after the teething incident, Emily had settled into a strange new normal. Blake had personally overridden Porter's objections and created a flexible childcare accommodation for emergency situations. The other executives pretended not to notice when Lily occasionally appeared with Emily for an hour before Blake's driver took them home. Tonight, the Whitfield Tower stood nearly empty as Emily worked, late, making up hours missed during Lily's doctor appointment. She'd left her daughter with Mrs. Gomez, their elderly neighbor who'd become a surrogate grandmother. As she dusted the boardroom bookshelves, a crash echoed from Blake's office. Emily froze, listening. Another sound, a strangled gasp, propelled her toward his door. Inside, she found Blake on the floor behind his desk, one hand clutching his chest, the other braced against the carpet. His breathing came in ragged bursts, his normally perfect composure shattered. Without hesitation, Emily knelt beside him. "Mr. Whitfield, can you hear me?" His eyes, wide with panic, locked onto hers. "You're having a panic attack," she said with calm certainty. "I'm going to count, and I need you to try to match your breathing to my count. Can you do that?" He managed a jerky nod, his knuckles white against his blue shirt. "In for 4, hold for 7, out for 8, Emily counted steadily, demonstrating the pattern. That's it, again. Gradually, his breathing slowed, the desperate terror in his eyes receding. Emily maintained eye contact, her voice steady and reassuring. My brother had these, she explained softly. The first time it happened, we thought he was having a heart attack. That's what I thought, Blake admitted hoarsely, color slowly returning to his face. I've had them before, but never this severe. Triggers can change, Emily said. James, my brother, found his attacks got worse when he was dealing with grief. Blake stared at her, momentarily forgetting their respective positions in the Whitfield hierarchy. Today is the anniversary of the accident. The words came unbidden. 3 years since my parents died. Understanding dawned in Emily's eyes. I'm sorry. Don't be, it wasn't your fault. His bitter laugh held no humor. It was mine. The confession hung in the air between them. Emily remained silent, somehow knowing he needed to continue. I was supposed to be on that plane. Blake loosened his tie with shaking hands. Last-minute meeting. I asked them to go without me, represent the company at the conference. And you've been carrying that guilt for 3 years? The simple question, asked without judgment, unraveled something within him. Every day. His voice dropped to a whisper. Especially when Audrey reminds me how disappointed they'd be in my decisions. Emily frowned. Your aunt? The board member? Blake nodded, surprising himself with how easily he was confiding in this woman he barely knew. Mr. Whitfield, Blake, he interrupted. After finding me like this, I think you've earned the right to use my first name. A small smile touched her lips. Blake, then. And I'm Emily. Emily, he repeated, as though testing the name. Thank you. She helped him to his feet, their hands lingering together longer than necessary. The air between them shifted, charged with unspoken possibilities. Would you like me to call your driver? She asked softly. No. His gaze held hers. Would you? Have dinner with me? Not as employer and employee, just as two people who could use some company tonight. Emily hesitated, weighing propriety against the unmistakable connection growing between them. Yes, she finally answered. I'd like that. Neither could have imagined how that simple acceptance would alter the course of both their lives. Dinner with Blake had been surprisingly relaxed. A corner table at a small Italian restaurant where no one seemed to recognize the billionaire. So. For 2 hours, they'd talked about everything except work, discovering shared tastes in books and music. Emily had left feeling conflicted, drawn to Blake yet wary of the power imbalance between them. 3 days later, a knock at her apartment. Door startled her. Lily was finally asleep after a fussy evening, and Emily had just settled down with a cup of tea. Peering through the peephole, she gasped at the sight of Blake Whitfield in the dingy hallway. Blake? She whispered, opening the door. Is everything okay? He looked distinctly uncomfortable in her building's narrow corridor. I'm sorry to come. Unannounced. May I come in? Emily glanced at her tiny living room with its second-hand furniture and laundry basket of unfolded clothes. Of course, Blake entered, seeming too large for the small space. His eyes softened when they landed on Lily's portable crib in the corner. I need a favor, he said, running a hand through his usually perfect hair. The Whitfield Foundation Gala. It's tomorrow night, our annual charity event. I know. I'm scheduled to help with cleanup, Emily replied. That's not why I'm here. He hesitated. My Aunt Audrey is insisting I bring a date. She's been trying to set me up with her friend's daughters for months. Understanding dawned. And you want me to accompany me officially? He looked directly into her eyes. I trust you, Emily. You're the only person who's seen me at my worst and didn't use it against me. Blake, I'm your employee. People will talk. People always talk. His expression hardened momentarily. Audrey is pushing for more control of the company. She says my isolation makes shareholders nervous. If I show up with someone, it might get her off my back. Emily weighed her, Options. The practical side of her knew this was dangerous territory. The single mother in her couldn't ignore the opportunity to network with people who might help her teaching career. I don't have anything to wear to something like that, she admitted. Blake smiled, a rare, genuine smile that transformed his face. I took the liberty of arranging some options. He handed her a card. The boutique is expecting you tomorrow morning. My treat as part of our arrangement. What exactly is our arrangement? Emily asked carefully. You attend as my guest, help me navigate a few hours of socializing, and I make a substantial donation to the education initiative of your choice. His expression grew serious. No expectations beyond that, Emily. You have my word. The next evening, Blake's breath caught when Emily opened her door. The midnight blue gown hugged her curves before flowing gracefully to the floor, her usually practical ponytail replaced by soft waves framing her face. You look beautiful, he said quietly. In the limousine, Emily fiddled nervously with her borrowed diamond bracelet. I've never been to anything like this. What if I embarrass you? Impossible. Blake's hand covered hers, stilling her nervous movement. Just be yourself. That's more than enough. As they approached the glittering hotel entrance, cameras flashed. Blake placed his hand protectively at the small of her back. Ready? Emily took a deep breath, feeling like Cinderella stepping into a world where she didn't belong. Ready? Together they walked through the doors, unaware that Audrey Whitfield was already watching, her calculating eyes narrowing at the sight of her nephew with the unknown woman on his arm. Emily's presence at the gala had caused quite a stir. Throughout the evening, Blake had introduced her simply as Emily Harris, my guest, offering no explanation for the beautiful stranger on his arm. When they'd waltzed together on the dance floor, Emily had felt the weight of curious stares from the city's elite. Audrey Whitfield had cornered them by the champagne fountain, her smile as sharp as cut glass. Blake, darling, you've been keeping secrets. Her gaze had assessed Emily from head to toe. How refreshing to see you with someone so unexpected. Now, a week later, Emily pushed her cleaning cart down the executive hallway, trying to ignore the whispers that followed her. The gala photos had circulated through the company grapevine, creating a wave of speculation. Emily? Blake's assistant Victoria approached, her expression unreadable. Mr. Whitfield would like to see you in his office immediately. Heart pounding, Emily smoothed her uniform and followed Victoria into the sleek corner office where Blake stood looking out at the Manhattan skyline. Thank you, Victoria. That will be all? He said without turning. When the door closed, he finally faced her. I apologize for the gossip. I should have anticipated it. It's fine, Emily replied, though they both knew it wasn't. Your aunt seemed particularly interested in me. Audrey is interested in anything she can use against me. He moved to his desk, retrieving a folder. Which brings me to why I called you here. Emily braced herself. Despite their connection, she knew Blake might need to distance himself, maybe even terminate her position to quell the rumors. I'd like to offer you a new position, he said instead, sliding the folder toward her. Assistant to the CEO. Emily stared at him in disbelief. You want your cleaning lady to be your assistant? Blake, people already think— I don't care what people think, he interrupted. You have a teaching degree, Emily. You're intelligent, observant, and most importantly, you're honest with me. That's rare in my world. She opened the folder, gasping at the salary figure. Triple what she currently earned. This is too much. It's the standard rate for the position, Blake countered. Plus childcare benefits. We'll convert the small conference room next to my office for Lily when necessary. Emily closed the folder. Why are you really doing this? Blake's professional. Mask slipped, revealing uncertainty. The panic attacks are getting worse, having you nearby. He hesitated. You ground me, Emily. I need someone I can trust completely. And the board will approve this unorthodox arrangement? The board doesn't manage my staff, he said firmly. This is my decision. Emily thought of what this would mean. Financial security for Lily, maybe even savings for college. But at what cost? People will say I slept my way into this position. They can say what they want. His eyes held hers. I know the truth. So do you. A knock interrupted them, and Victoria entered with coffee. Emily noticed the older woman's appraising glance moving between them. After Victoria left, Emily sighed. Even your current assistant suspects something. Victoria has been with the company for 20 years. She'll adapt. Blake leaned forward. Emily, I need you. Not for whatever reasons people might gossip about. I need your perspective, your honesty. Something in his vulnerability moved her. This powerful man, asking for her help, not demanding, asking. I accept, she said finally. On one condition, Blake raised an eyebrow. Name it. We keep things strictly professional. No more galas, no personal entanglements, just work. A shadow of disappointment crossed his face, but he nodded. Agreed. They shook hands, the touch sending the same electric current through them both, a reminder of the connection they were agreeing to ignore. Neither suspected how impossible that agreement would prove to be. Emily's transition from cleaning, staff to executive assistant had been smoother than expected. Victoria, initially cold, had warmed to her after discovering Emily's organizational skills and genuine respect for the older woman's institutional knowledge. 3 months into her new role, Emily had established a comfortable routine that allowed her to balance work and motherhood. Today, Blake was meeting with international investors while Emily prepared the quarterly reports for next week's board presentation. As she cross-referenced financial statements, something caught her attention, a pattern of discrepancies in the European division's numbers. Frowning, Emily pulled up previous quarter's reports. The inconsistencies weren't obvious, small variances that might be overlooked individually, but together they painted a concerning picture. Transfers to offshore accounts, consulting fees to companies that seemed to exist only on paper, expense reports with vague descriptions. Her finger hovered over Blake's direct line. This was beyond her expertise, but her instincts screamed that something was wrong. Blake Whitfield, he answered, his voice clipped and professional. It's Emily. I found something in the European financials you should see. 20 minutes later, Blake stood behind her chair, his proximity sending warmth down her spine despite her focus on the spreadsheets. Here, she pointed to the screen. And here. The pattern repeats quarterly, small enough to miss, large enough to add up to millions over time. Blake's expression darkened. Who had access to these accounts? According to the system logs, only 3 people. You, CFO Hammond, and... Emily hesitated. And? Your Aunt Audrey. Blake's jaw tightened. Hammond resigned suddenly last month. Said he was moving to Portugal for his health. That's another thing, Emily said, pulling up an email. This came yesterday about the property acquisition in Madrid. The signature block shows Audrey as acting CFO, but I don't recall any announcement. There wasn't one. Blake straightened. Decision made. Emily, I need you to keep this between us. Don't access these files again from your computer. You think someone's watching the system activity? In my experience, money like this doesn't disappear without protection. He ran a hand through his hair, a rare gesture of agitation. We need to be careful, if what I suspect is happening. Emily thought of Lily, now comfortable in the makeshift nursery next door where she napped under Victoria's watchful eye. Should I be worried? Blake's eyes softened momentarily. No, this isn't your battle. I made it mine when I noticed the discrepancies, she countered firmly. I won't be kept in the dark if I'm already involved. Their gazes locked in silent challenge until Blake nodded reluctantly. Tonight, my penthouse. Bring Lily, it's safer than discussing this here. That evening, as Emily sat on Blake's modern couch with Lily playing on a blanket nearby, they pieced together a disturbing puzzle. The financial irregularities suggested a sophisticated embezzlement scheme, potentially millions siphoned through shell companies. Who else might be involved? Emily asked quietly. That's what scares me, Blake admitted. My parents trusted Audrey completely. If she's behind this, we need more evidence, Emily said, her protective instincts rising. And we need to be careful how we get it. Blake's phone rang. Audrey's ringtone. His eyes met Emily's as he answered, "Hello, Aunt." Audrey. Neither realized they were already being watched. Their investigation noticed by those with everything to lose. A week after discovering the discrepancies, Emily sat at her desk reviewing personnel files. Blake had tasked her with identifying trusted employees who could help investigate discreetly. She jumped when Audrey Whitfield appeared at her desk, elegant in a cream Chanel suit. "Emily, dear." Audrey's smile didn't reach her eyes. "I was hoping we might have a little chat." "Of course, Ms. Whitfield. Would you like me to schedule something with Blake?" "No need to bother my nephew. This is just between us girls." Audrey settled into the visitor chair. "You've made quite an impression around here. Such a remarkable rise, from cleaning floors to the executive suite." Emily maintained her professional smile. "I'm grateful for the opportunity. And how is your daughter adjusting, Lily, isn't it?" Audrey examined her manicure. "Children are so precious, so vulnerable." The seemingly casual mention of Lily sent a chill down Emily's spine. "She's wonderful, thank you for asking," Emily replied carefully. "I've always believed family comes first," Audrey continued. "Loyalty to family is everything. Blake seems to have forgotten that recently." Her gaze sharpened. "I hope you're not encouraging his independence." "I simply assist Mr. Whitfield with his duties," Emily said neutrally. "Of course you do." Audrey stood gracefully. "I'd hate to see anyone come between Blake and his family obligations. It never ends well for the interloper." After Audrey left, Emily's hands trembled as she texted Blake, "Your aunt just paid me a visit, we need to talk." That evening they met in a small cafe far from Whitfield Tower. Blake listened intently as Emily recounted the conversation. "She threatened Lily," Emily concluded, her voice tight. "Not directly, but the message was clear." Blake's expression darkened. "This goes deeper than I thought." "There's more," Emily said. "Victoria received a call from Hammond's assistant. He didn't resign to move to Portugal, he's in the hospital. Someone broke both his legs." Blake went still. "When?" "The day after he emailed you about accounting irregularities." "This isn't just embezzlement," Blake said quietly. "The shell companies are laundering money for someone powerful, someone with political connections." "How do you know?" "Because I've been quietly investigating since my parents died." Blake's voice dropped further. "I think they discovered the scheme. Their plane crash might not have been an accident." Emily paled. "Blake, if that's true, we're in serious danger." "I know people who can help," he said. "But first we need concrete evidence, something that can't be denied or covered up." "Audrey's office," Emily suggested. "She keeps paper records. I've seen her lockbox. She doesn't trust digital systems." "Too risky. Her office is monitored." "Not during board meetings," Emily pointed out. "Everyone will be there, including security." Blake studied her face. "You're not suggesting." "I am. Next Tuesday, annual shareholder presentation. 3 hours minimum." "I won't put you at risk," Blake insisted. Emily reached across the table, taking his hand. "I'm already at risk. So is Lily. If what you suspect is true, we need to end this now." Their fingers intertwined, both aware that professional boundaries had permanently blurred. "Together, then," Blake said softly. "Whatever happens, we face it together." Tuesday morning arrived with a tension that hung in the air like an electrical storm. Emily dressed with particular care, a conservative gray suit that would attract no attention if she was spotted in the executive wing. Blake had arranged for Lily to spend the day with Victoria's sister, a retired kindergarten teacher who lived outside the city. "Remember," Blake said during their brief meeting before the board arrived, "if anything feels wrong, abort immediately. Your safety comes first." Emily nodded, tucking the master key card he'd provided into her pocket. 3 hours. I'll be careful." The plan was simple, yet dangerous. While Blake kept the board engaged with the annual presentation, Emily would access Audrey's office, locate her private files, and photograph any evidence of the financial scheme. At precisely 2:15 p.m., Emily watched from her desk as the last executive entered the boardroom. She waited 5 more minutes, then casually walked toward the executive wing, nodding to the few employees she passed. Audrey's corner office stood at the end of the hallway. Emily swiped the master key card, her heart pounding as the lock clicked, open. Inside, the space exuded old money. Antique desk, leather chairs, and family photos strategically placed to remind visitors of the Whitfield legacy. Emily moved quickly to the bookcase, where she'd once seen Audrey retrieve a hidden box. Running her fingers along the shelf, she found the concealed button. A small panel slid open, revealing a wall safe. The combination eluded her until she noticed a framed photo of Audrey with Blake's parents. The date on the silver frame, 8/24/75, yielded access with a satisfying click. Inside lay a leather portfolio stamped with a single word, Providence. Emily's hands trembled as she opened it, finding exactly what they needed. Detailed records of transactions, offshore account numbers, and most damning, a list of individuals on the receiving end of Whitfield money. Politicians, judges, regulatory, officials. She quickly photographed each page with her phone. As she replaced the portfolio, voices in the hallway froze her in place. The meeting's running long. I need those Providence files now. Audrey's unmistakable voice. Of course, Ms. Whitfield. A male voice Emily didn't recognize. Emily closed the safe, her mind racing. The office had no back exit, nowhere to hide except she slipped behind the floor-length curtains just as the door opened. Wait outside, Audrey commanded. This is private. Through a sliver between curtains, Emily watched Audrey retrieve the portfolio, extract several pages, and place them in an envelope. The man re-entered, taking the envelope. The senator is getting nervous about our arrangement, Audrey said. Assure him everything is proceeding as planned. And your nephew? Audrey's laugh sent chills down Emily's spine. Blake's position will soon be renegotiated. As for his little assistant, I have plans for her as well. Permanent plans? The man asked casually, as if discussing dinner reservations. Let's just say she'll no longer be a concern. When they finally left, Emily waited 2 agonizing minutes before slipping out. Her hand clutched her phone, now holding evidence that could destroy Audrey and potentially save their lives. Miley's heart pounded against her ribs as she made her way back to her desk. The evidence on her phone could bring down not just Audrey, but an entire network of corruption. She quickly transferred the photos to an encrypted email and sent it to Blake's private account. A message appeared on her screen. Meeting ending. Early. Audrey left. Be careful. Emily gathered her things immediately. She needed to get to Lily and find somewhere safe until Blake could meet them. As she stepped into the elevator, her phone rang. Mrs. Rodriguez from the daycare center. Emily? I'm so sorry to bother you at work, but Lily has a slight fever. Nothing serious, but we thought you'd want to know. I'll be right there, Emily assured her, concern for her daughter momentarily overshadowing the danger they were in. The busy Manhattan streets offered anonymous safety as Emily hurried toward the daycare, 6 blocks from Whitfield Tower. The late afternoon crowd provided cover, but something made her glance back. A man in a dark suit, moving with purpose, his eyes fixed on her. Emily quickened her pace, weaving through pedestrians. Another check confirmed her fears. He was following her, closing the distance. She ducked into a coffee shop, slipping out the side entrance into an alley and breaking into a run. By the time she reached the daycare, her breath came in shallow gasps. She punched in Blake's number. I think I'm being followed, she whispered, when he answered. I'm at Lily's daycare now. Stay there, Blake commanded. I'm sending Johnson with the car. He's 3 minutes out. Emily gathered a feverish Lily who whimpered against her shoulder. Through the daycare's front window, she spotted the man in the suit scanning the street. He's here, she breathed into the phone. Blake, what do I do? Back exit? Yes, to the service alley. Go now. Johnson will meet you there. Emily slipped out the rear door with Lily, hurrying down the alley toward the next street. A sleek black Whitfield Enterprises car pulled alongside her, the driver, Blake's most trusted security officer, motioning her inside. As they pulled away, Emily spotted her pursuer turning into the alley, his expression hardening when he saw the escaping car. "Take us somewhere safe," she told Johnson, cradling Lily close. "Somewhere they won't look." The car wound through Manhattan traffic, taking random turns to ensure they weren't followed. Emily's phone buzzed with a text from Blake. "Meeting you at the safe house. Don't call anyone. Don't trust anyone." Lily dozed fitfully in her arms as buildings gave way to suburbs. Emily stared out the window, wondering how her orderly life had transformed into this dangerous game of cat and mouse. Less than a year ago, she'd been a struggling single mother cleaning offices. Now she was fleeing for her life, holding evidence that could topple powerful people. Johnson finally turned onto a quiet street lined with modest homes. "We're here, Ms. Harris. Mr. Whitfield is waiting inside." As Blake opened the car door, his face tight with worry, Emily realized that somewhere along this dangerous journey, he had become more than her boss. Much more. And for better or worse, their lives were now inextricably linked. The safe house was a modest 3-bedroom ranch with drawn curtains and reinforced doors. Inside, Blake introduced Emily to Detective Michael Reynolds, a serious man with salt and pepper hair and watchful eyes. "Ms. Harris." Reynolds nodded, his voice quietly authoritative. "Mr. Whitfield filled me in. I've been investigating this money laundering operation for 18 months, but we've lacked concrete evidence until now." Emily shifted Lily to her other arm. "What happens next?" "First, we get your daughter comfortable," Reynolds said, his stern expression softening. "There's a bedroom set up with a crib. My wife dropped off children's Tylenol and some toys." While Emily settled Lily, Blake and Reynolds studied the photos from Audrey's safe, their low voices punctuated by occasional exclamations. When Emily returned, Blake's face was grim. "It's worse than we thought," he said. "The Providence Initiative isn't just embezzlement, it's a sophisticated system to buy political influence, senators, judges, regulators." "Your parents discovered it," Reynolds added. "We've suspected their accident wasn't random, but proving it has been impossible." "Until now." Blake's voice hardened. "Audrey's files contain everything we need, including communications about arranging accidents for problems." Emily sank into a chair. "Like Hammond's broken legs. Like what they planned for me." "You're safe here," Reynolds assured her. "This house isn't connected to the department or Whitfield Enterprises." "For how long?" Emily asked. "I can't raise Lily in hiding." 3 days, Reynolds replied. "Thursday's board meeting is our opportunity. Audrey's called an emergency session to vote Blake out as CEO. Instead, we'll be waiting with federal agents." Later, after Reynolds left to coordinate with his team and Lily finally slept, Emily joined Blake on the back porch. The spring night was cool but clear, stars visible despite the city's distant glow. "I never thanked you," Blake said quietly. "You risked everything today." "So did you," Emily replied. "This company is your legacy. The company doesn't matter. You and Lily." He hesitated. "When I heard you were being followed, I've never been so terrified." Their eyes met in the dim light. Something unspoken passed between them, something beyond professional boundaries, beyond the danger they faced. "Emily," Blake's voice softened as he reached for her hand. "These past months you've brought something back to life in me. Something I thought died with my parents." "Blake." His fingers gently traced her cheek. "I know this isn't the right time. We're in the middle of a crisis, hiding from people who want to hurt us. But if anything happens Thursday," Emily leaned forward, pressing her lips to his. A kiss both tender and urgent, acknowledging feelings too powerful to ignore any longer. When they parted, Blake's eyes held a promise. "When this is over, we'll figure out what this means. Together." From inside the house, Lily's cry broke the moment. As Emily rose to comfort her daughter, she knew with absolute certainty that whatever lay ahead, Their lives had changed forever. Thursday morning arrived with a tense stillness. Blake adjusted his tie in the safe-house mirror, his expression resolute. Beneath his impeccable suit, he wore a bulletproof vest, Detective Reynolds's non-negotiable condition for his return to Whitfield Tower. "Remember the protocol?" Reynolds instructed, checking his service weapon. "My team will be positioned throughout the building. Ms. Harris stays here with Officer Chen until we give the all-clear." Emily approached Blake, straightening his already perfect tie. "Be careful," she whispered. His fingers brushed hers. "Always." The boardroom buzzed with tension when Blake entered. 12 board members sat around the mahogany table with Audrey positioned at the far end, a clear challenge to Blake's authority at the head. Her surprise at his appearance was quickly masked by a practiced smile. "Nephew, we weren't certain you'd join us." "I wouldn't miss it, Aunt Audrey." Blake's voice carried across the hushed room as he took his seat. "I understand you've called this meeting to discuss my leadership." Audrey's smile tightened. "The board has concerns about recent decisions that seem erratic. Your attachment to certain staff members, for instance." Murmurs rippled through the room. Blake opened his portfolio calmly. "Before we begin, I'd like to distribute some documents for review." He passed folders to each member. "You'll find detailed evidence of financial irregularities within Whitfield Enterprises, specifically the Providence Initiative." Color drained from Audrey's face. "What is this?" "The truth," Blake said simply. "Embezzlement, money laundering, bribery of government officials, all orchestrated from within this company." The boardroom doors opened. Detective Reynolds entered, followed by federal agents. "What is the meaning of this?" demanded Walter Green, Audrey's closest ally on the board. "Justice, Mr. Green," Reynolds answered, displaying his badge. "For Charles and Margaret Whitfield, whose plane crash was no accident. For CFO Hammond, currently recovering from a brutal assault. And for others who've been silenced." Audrey stood abruptly. "This is absurd." "Blake, have you lost your mind? These allegations are supported by your own records," Blake finished. "The files you kept in your private safe." Realization dawned in Audrey's eyes. "Your little assistant, she was in my office. Ms. Harris discovered what you've been hiding for years," Blake confirmed, his voice hardening. "What you killed my parents to protect." Audrey's composure finally cracked. "They were going to ruin everything. Charles became so righteous, threatening, to expose our political connections, decades of carefully cultivated relationships." The room fell silent at this inadvertent confession. "You never understood what it takes to maintain power," Audrey continued bitterly. "Your father didn't either until it was too late. I protected this company." "You betrayed it," Blake countered. "You betrayed this family." As Reynolds moved to arrest Audrey, she fixed Blake with a vengeful stare. "You think this ends with me? There are people involved who will never allow themselves to be exposed." "We'll take our chances," Blake replied steadily, watching as his aunt was led away in handcuffs. The dynasty his parents had built would survive, damaged, but purged of corruption. Now he could rebuild it with integrity, honoring their true legacy. And perhaps with Emily by his side, create something even stronger. The weeks following Audrey's arrest unfolded in a whirlwind of legal proceedings and media frenzy. Headlines screamed about the Whitfield corruption scandal, with journalists digging into every connection named in the Providence files. 3 senators announced their immediate retirement, a federal judge resigned, and 2 regulatory officials were placed on administrative leave pending investigation. Blake faced the storm with a steady hand, cooperating fully with authorities while working tirelessly to protect Whitfield Enterprises' 5,000 employees from the fallout. The board, now missing 3 members who had fled the country following Audrey's arrest, unanimously backed his leadership. Emily observed this transformation from her new office adjacent to Blake's. They had agreed to maintain professional distance at work, while the company stabilized, but their evenings often found them at Blake's penthouse or Emily's apartment, building something precious and unexpected amid the chaos. Today marked a significant step in the company's rebirth. The first meeting, of the newly formed Ethics and Compliance Committee, which Emily had been appointed to lead. "Everyone, please welcome Emily Harris," Blake announced to the gathered executives. "Ms. Harris not only helped uncover the corruption within our company, but has developed a comprehensive framework to ensure such abuses never happen again." Emily rose, smoothing her navy suit. The faces around the conference table reflected a mix of respect and lingering skepticism. Some still viewed her as the cleaner who had climbed too high too fast. Others recognized her intelligence and integrity. "Thank you, Mr. Whitfield," she began, her voice steady. "The events of the past month have damaged our company's reputation, but they've also given us an unprecedented opportunity to rebuild with transparency at our core." For the next hour, Emily outlined her vision. A robust reporting system for financial irregularities, mandatory ethics training, and a revolutionary profit-sharing program for employees at all levels. When she finished, the room fell silent. Roger, Madison, the crusty CFO brought out of retirement to replace Hammond, spoke first. "Bold proposals, Ms. Harris, especially the Community Investment Initiative." "Bold times call for bold measures," Emily replied. "Whitfield Enterprises took from this community through corruption. Now we have a chance to give back and redefine our legacy." By meeting's end, her proposals had received unanimous approval. As executives filed out, Blake remained seated, waiting until they were alone. "That was impressive," he said, his professional tone giving way to something warmer. "They didn't expect such vision from someone they've underestimated." Emily gathered her notes. "People have been underestimating me my whole life. It gives me an advantage." Blake smiled, the private smile few ever saw. "Not anymore. Word of your presentation is already spreading. The board wants to meet you formally next week." "Are you worried about how they'll react to us?" Emily asked quietly. Though they'd been discreet, rumors inevitably circulated. "No," Blake said simply. "My personal life is my own, and I'm done hiding what matters to me." He checked his watch. "Speaking of which, we should leave if we're going to make Lily's daycare graduation." The simple statement, acknowledging his place in their lives as if it had always been there, warmed Emily's heart. In just months, Blake had gone from distant CEO to essential part of their small family. As they walked toward the elevator, Victoria approached with a tablet. "Mr. Whitfield, the architect sent the revised plans for your consideration." Blake glanced at the house designs on screen. "The backyard space works better now. Emily, what do you think? Enough room for Lily to play?" The casual consultation, in front of Victoria no less, marked another small step toward their future, one they were building together, with foundations far stronger than either could have created alone. 6 months after Audrey's arrest, Whitfield Enterprises had transformed. The scandal had initially threatened to destroy the company, but Blake's transparent leadership and Emily's innovative community initiatives had not only saved it, but positioned it as a corporate responsibility model. The newly created Second Chance program, providing jobs and education to struggling single parents, had garnered national attention. Today, Emily was finalizing the proposal for company-sponsored childcare centers when Blake appeared in her doorway. "Do you have a minute?" he asked, unusually hesitant. "For the boss?" "Always." She smiled, noticing he carried architectural plans tucked under his arm. Blake closed the door and spread the drawings across her desk. "The Brooklyn property is finally ready. What do you think?" Emily studied the plans for the first Whitfield Family Center, a comprehensive facility offering childcare, job training, and support services for single parents. The project had become her passion, inspired by her own struggles. "It's perfect," she said, tracing the outline of the playground designed with input from early childhood experts. "I can't believe we're breaking ground next month." "I had them add something," Blake said, pointing to a small courtyard garden. "This will be dedicated to your parents, the people who raised such an extraordinary daughter." Emily's eyes filled with tears. Her parents had died in a car accident when she was 19. leaving her alone to finish college and later face single motherhood without their support. "Blake," she whispered. Thank you." He moved closer, his professional demeanor slipping. "There's something else. The house on Long Island, our house, is finished." The waterfront property they'd purchased together had undergone extensive renovations to become their weekend retreat. Though Blake still maintained his penthouse and Emily her apartment, the house represented their future, a place where Lily could have a yard to play in and they could build memories away from the corporate world. "When can we see it?" Emily asked. "Tonight, if you'd like." The contractor just called with the final approval. As Emily gathered her things to leave, Victoria appeared with an urgent message. "Ms. Harris, Lily's teacher called. She has a slight fever. They've already given her the approved medication, but they wanted you to know." The familiar flutter of maternal worry rose in Emily's chest, though she'd learned it was normal for a 2-year-old to catch occasional bugs at daycare. "Thank you, Victoria. Would you let them know we'll pick her up in 30 minutes? Blake touched her arm gently. "We can reschedule the house visit." "No," Emily said decisively. "Let's get Lily and go anyway. She loves the beach and fresh air might help. We can take it easy there." Hours later, with Lily asleep in the beautifully prepared children's bedroom of their new home, Emily and Blake stood on the moonlit deck overlooking the Atlantic. The October air carried a hint of coming winter, but the night was clear and calm. "It's perfect," Emily said softly. "All of it." Blake turned to face her, taking both her hands in his. "Emily, these past months, you've changed everything. Not just the company. Me." She smiled, seeing the transformation in the man before her, still powerful and brilliant, but now with an openness, a capacity for joy that had been buried beneath years of guilt and isolation. "We changed each other," she replied. "You gave me the chance to use my abilities to build a life beyond survival. You gave me back my heart," Blake said simply. "Emily Harris, I love you. I love the family we're becoming. Lily, you, me. This is what matters, the legacy I truly care about." As their lips met under the stars, Emily knew they had both finally found their way home. 1 year had passed since Blake's declaration of love on the moonlit deck. Spring had returned to New York, bringing new beginnings in more ways than one. Today, Emily supervised movers as they carried the last of her and Lily's belongings from their Brooklyn apartment. The modest space that had once been their entire world now looked strangely small and ordinary without their presence. "Ready for one last look?" Blake asked, standing in the doorway with 3-year-old Lily perched on his shoulders. "Goodbye, old house," Lily called out, waving enthusiastically. Over the past year, she had blossomed from a shy toddler into a confident little girl who considered Blake her Blake, not quite daddy yet, but filled with the same adoration. Emily ran her hand along the kitchen counter where she'd once calculated budgets down to the penny, wondering how she would afford next month's rent. That struggling single mother seemed like someone from another lifetime. "It's silly to feel emotional about leaving," she admitted. "This place was never meant to be permanent." Blake set Lily down and wrapped his arms around Emily from behind. "It's not silly. This apartment sheltered you both when you had nothing else. It's part of your story, our story now." Their journey together had unfolded with unexpected speed yet perfect timing. After the corruption scandal settled, Blake had thrown himself into rebuilding the company with a new mission focused on community impact. Emily's childhood education background had found purpose in developing Whitfield's childcare initiatives, now expanding to 3 locations. The Long Island house had become their weekend sanctuary until 3 months ago, when Blake suggested they make it their permanent home. The penthouse had sold quickly, and today marked the final transition, leaving Emily's apartment behind. "The adoption papers came through yesterday," Blake said quietly, as Lily explored the empty rooms one last time. "My lawyer called while you were directing the movers." Emily turned in his arms, eyes wide. "Already? They said it could take months more. Blake smiled. Apparently my considerable financial resources and stable home environment, combined with Lily already living with us, expedited things. So, officially, I am now legally her father, Blake finished, his voice catching with emotion. If you still want that. Emily brushed her fingers along his cheek. It's what we both want. What Lily wants too, even if she doesn't fully understand yet. Their little family had formed organically. Blake initially a boss, then a friend, then essential to them both. Though they'd discussed marriage, they'd agreed to take one significant step at a time, ensuring Lily's security first. Home now? Lily asked, returning to tug at Blake's hand. Yes, sweetheart, Emily answered. We're going home. As they walked out of the apartment for the final time, Emily thought about the extraordinary journey that had brought them here. From her days scrubbing floors to becoming a corporate executive, from Blake's isolated existence to embracing fatherhood. The path had been dangerous at times, filled with unexpected turns, but had led them exactly where they were meant to be. Together. The Long Island beach glowed golden in the setting sun as guests mingled on the expansive lawn. Today marked 3 years since Blake and Emily had first acknowledged their feelings for each other in that safe house, and 1 year since they had finally exchanged vows on this same beach. Emily stood near the rose-covered arbor, watching 4-year-old Lily dance with her flower girl dress twirling around her. The adoption had been finalized 18 months ago, and Blake had quickly become daddy in Lily's vocabulary and heart. Today's anniversary celebration doubled as a vow renewal, their way of including Lily in the ceremony she'd been too young to appreciate last year. Mrs. Whitfield, Blake's voice came from behind her. You look beautiful. Emily turned to face her husband, still sometimes amazed by the journey that had brought them here. So do you, Mr. Whitfield. His eyes, once cold and distant when she'd first cleaned his office, now held a warmth reserved only for her and Lily. Have I told you today how much I love you? Only about 20 times, she laughed. But I'll never tire of hearing it. Their guests represented all chapters of their story. Victoria, now Emily's closest friend and chief operating officer of the Whitfield Foundation, Detective Reynolds and his wife. Even Mrs. Gomez, the elderly neighbor who had watched Lily in those early Brooklyn days. The transformation of Whitfield Enterprises over these years had been remarkable. The 5 Whitfield family centers now operating across New York served thousands of families. Emily's vision had expanded beyond childcare to encompass housing assistance, educational scholarships, and job placement services. Blake's phone buzzed. He checked it quickly, then smiled. The London deal is finalized. The first International Family Center breaks ground next month. Perfect timing, Emily replied. Just as we're announcing the new addition to our own family. Blake's eyes widened, his hand instinctively moving to Emily's still flat stomach. Are you saying? She nodded, eyes shining. 8 weeks. I confirmed it yesterday. Lily's going to be a big sister in about 7 months. Joy spread across Blake's face as he pulled her close, mindful of the baby they had created together. Daddy, mommy, cake time, Lily called, running toward them with boundless energy. As Blake scooped up their daughter, Emily reflected on the remarkable journey that had brought them here. From cleaning woman to executive, from lonely CEO to devoted father, they had overcome corruption, danger, and family betrayal to build something beautiful together. What are you thinking? Blake asked softly, noticing her contemplative expression. That sometimes the most unlikely beginnings lead to the most perfect endings, Emily answered, taking his hand as they walked toward their future. A future brighter than either could have imagined on that fateful day when a cleaning cart collided with a distracted CEO, forever changing 2 worlds.